I'm proud to work with one of the premier fire and rescue departments in the world. From humble beginnings, the Fairfax County Fire and Rescue Department is now the largest department in the Commonwealth of Virginia and one of the best in our nation. Our Fire and Rescue Academy is the cornerstone of our success. In 1949, due to economic growth and development in Fairfax County, the County Board of Supervisors approved the hiring of 10 firefighter drivers for each of the volunteer stations. And from that, the Fairfax County Fire and Rescue Department was born.
Most all the firefighters were business people or people that worked within the area. And I sort of followed them into the paid service. Well, it didn't take long working in the station. When I went to work the first day, it was me, that was it.
Our main purpose still was to tend to all emergency calls, but other than that, we took care of the building, kept it clean, fire equipment, and watched the dogs that we had at the station if we had any. Well, our main emergencies at that time were brush fires. There was a lot of fields, open fields and yards and all, and during the months of windy months, we had awful lot of brush fires. And the dog and I, if no one else showed up when the siren blew, we would respond alone and do the best we could by ourselves.
In the early 1960s, Willis H. Burton was hired as Fire Services Administrator. As the Fire Services Administrator, he appointed the first training officer and the 5th recruit training school was started.
The people at that time, they were interested in doing something and interesting work, challenging work. Get the adrenaline flowing now and then feel good about it.
I remember when I was hired into the department, you knew the name of every other firefighter in the county.
We used to have a drill, you know, at the station every once in a while. We'd put the ladder up to the front of the building, and we'd take a hose up there and make it like the roof was on fire.
We needed an organized training program ensuring that everyone at least met the minimum standards of a firefighter. To find individuals that not only were mentally capable of absorbing the necessary technical didactic information, but also would be physically conditioned to handle the physical aspect of the job.
In 1965, the department completed construction of its first training center.
We had 2 classrooms and an office, built a combined water tank and training building, a tower.
Everything from moving water, pumps, actual firefighting, rope work, everything was taken care of at the training center.
Without enough breathing equipment or no dummies other than myself, they would put the littler guys in the building and we would breathe through the holes where you would wash water or dirt out of the building while guys come in and search for you and drag you out. And then you'd finally get your turn.
The whole idea of training a firefighter was to train him to be able to function on his own, independently, if the need was there, to follow the orders of the officer without any hesitation because they had more experience and knew better.
They seek you out for everything from learning at the academy, learning the fire department, learning how to get along with others if they've not done that so well in the past, and learning the family of the fire department. And you're the first exposure to that type of a system.
We did line up every morning with our uniform on, our shoes shined and pressed, and we did that to start every day. We did PT, but it was basically running and calisthenics-based PT. We did very little weight training, and we did none of the work performance type PT that they do now.
We did pit fires, which was the flammable liquids training. At the time, we got oil from Lord knows where. It was just waste oil that was used, and we did it at night so the neighbors didn't complain. We had the big black cloud of smoke. We also used no masks. It was just 3 crews with the 2.5-inch line, 2-inch-and-a-halves, and you went in and walked through it and put it out. There were a lot of things that we did because that was the only way you could do them back then. And the idea was to teach you to do it and be able to survive in the real world once you got out to the field.
We had long boots, a running coat. We had no protection for our wrists. We had gloves, but when you reached for something, your wrist would get burned. We had no protection around our neck and our ears. Many times you come out, your ears just felt like they were melted.
The first thing I ever had was a little canister-type mask that had to filter the air that I was breathing. That was probably about as effective as holding a handkerchief over your face.
Leather had been the traditional helmet, showing the best characteristics of all-around protection. But manufacturers had developed plastic helmets that gave you the impact resistance. To be out on a longer event, it was much better to have the lighter helmet. So that was an improvement. The basic look of a coat is pretty much stayed the same, but it's been a major change going from a cotton cloth that would have a covering to now more high-tech material as space age has developed for people.
Self-contained breathing apparatus. Now, that was a godsend. That was the first real thing that we saw happen. When we could carry the air that we were going to breathe, we didn't have to filter it.
To do the kind of work that firefighters, paramedics, rescue personnel have to do, they have to be a team. Everyone brings their strengths to the table, so to speak, and when you combine that in a well-trained group that works well together, the results are remarkable.
Man's running, he's running so hard, he falls down and he just can't get up. And all the other troops will stop and help him because it's a team effort. We don't leave, it's kind of like the military. They don't leave one behind, they always bring them home.
What I remember the most as a recruit is doing the Bangor ladder climb, where as a team, we had to get together and climb up this seemed like impossibly high ladder, 45, 50 feet, and go over the top and come back down, and your buddies, 6 of them were holding the ladder for you.
We went through 16 weeks, and when that 16 weeks was done, it was like, I never want to come back here again. You know, it was tough going, and you just said, I want to get out of this testing and get assigned to a station.
So I was interviewed, selected, and went to work at the station where I was served as a volunteer at Station 13, Dunloring. Fairfax County was beginning to grow rapidly. We were quickly exhausting the applicant pool, the volunteers. So there'd be a need for recruit school and certainly a need for consistency. Training at that point, until we hired our first training officer, was ad hoc.
When I first came to the department, once you got through the academy, you very seldom came back. Most of your training was done at the station level.
The guys on the shift would teach you how your shift was doing stuff, but your shift might not do it the same as another shift. As we learned that that wasn't a good model, we melded together where state training was done at a station level so that all 3 shifts would be doing the same thing the same way.
The downside of that was that every station sort of had its own way of doing things. There was an old saying that, okay, you're not at the academy anymore. This is how we do it out in the field. That's gone now. Today, the firefighters learn the way it's done, and it's the process that continues once they're out in the field. So it's needed because you need to work together, and everybody needs to work the same way in order to function correctly.
One of probably the most interesting things in Academy was the reference manual that we had. It was titled the Ohio Manual. So we were actually learning how Ohio firefighters fought fires, which, no, it's 2 separate worlds, Ohio and Fairfax County. So we always thought that was very interesting, but That's the manual that was available at the time. There was no national fire manual. That was the closest thing.
The basic training changed dramatically. For example, we used a ladder that was 50 foot long when it was fully extended. And we used that ladder in our training to determine if the recruit was in the right physical state, in the right state of mind to be able to do such a thing, to put his life in danger to accomplish a task. We made him go into a burning building with the gear that we had in those days, and believe me, it was a challenge not to get a recruit burned during a training exercise.
The ladder trucks and engines certainly at that time were open cabs. Okay, when I started, there were some that were covered, but you drove in an open cab vehicle many times, and that meant rain and all the elements that we enjoy, you know, were there, including cold and all that. And I have fond memories of driving and also tillering the back end of a ladder truck.
I recall taking a 20-foot straight ladder and putting on the end of that 100-foot aerial ladder so you could reach 2 more floors down at Huntington Avenue, down in those high rises, which were at the time some of the few in the county.
The only place you could ride on a fire truck was the 2 front seats. The rest was old tailboard.
We used to ride on the back step of vehicles, on engines. We'd get on the back and hang on and dress yourself, or get on, bring your gear, and stand behind your buddy so that he could dress as you were going down the road.
Our whole goal was to make a firefighter out of the young man in a short amount of time so he would be of value to the public out in the field and to the other firefighters that were already out there. And we did the best we could with what we had to work with, and we learned an awful lot, and they learned an awful lot. I learned a lot about myself as a teacher, of a physical, hands-on type teacher, not a book man, but the actual job of firefighting as we know it today.
They're going to get a basic understanding of fire behavior, the initial model of the fire tetrahedron, the heat, fuel, oxygen, and then chemical chain reaction of it that allows fire to propagate. Then they learn how to, from that, how to take away one of those sides of the tetrahedron to get fire to go out, whether it's suppressing it with water, taking the heat away from it, the oxygen away from it with a carbon dioxide extinguisher, and so forth and so on. And then they learn how to suppress it, and then the different techniques and the handling of the devices that would allow them to apply those techniques.
July 1970 brought significant advancement to the Fairfax County Fire and Rescue Academy. The Field Incident Reporting Evaluation System was implemented. Fairfax County became the first major fire service in the nation to adopt this system based on the National Fire Protection Association, or NFPA, Standard 901. This helped bring standardization of training and testing to recruits.
The program now has migrated to Firefighter 1 and 2, which is the standard, the new standard now for NFPA, and we do EMT school first for everybody now, and then they go to fire school. We use that time in EMT school now to actually get them in better physical shape so they can perform better in fire school.
We had a first organized exercise regimen that we went through with regard to anaerobic strength training and with aerobic cardiovascular fitness. I think that that was the first time that it was actually formally introduced at the academy.
Other departments that didn't have academies, and some other departments that did, were waiting for people who graduated from Fairfax County to come and pull them out. And some of the recruits that I've taught, they're working in New York City, they're working for FDNY, some working in DC, others working in smaller departments that really don't have the funding to have academy. So we were basically the academy for a lot of different departments.
You had a high percentage of folks that either had experience being from a different department, was a volunteer somewhere, or had family members in the agency. Today, your makeup of recruit classes can be anywhere from airline pilots to teachers to people from the different industries coming in looking for an opportunity. Now we can sit in a computer room or training lab, and conduct various scenarios in a non-hazardous environment to where we can stop and discuss things and talk about it. Learn from that perspective before we put people in a hazardous environment.
When I was in recruit school, we were in a finishing school. They assumed all of us had some type of volunteer experience, and they were just making sure we could do it the Fairfax way. When I came back, we were using the IFSTA book, we were using the NFPA training system that we adopted for Fairfax. So we had competencies in terms of being able to pull hose, throw ladders, use breathing apparatus functions, member of a team, and that was a big change.
When you come to Fairfax County, they want you to do it Fairfax County way. And that's all good because there's certain ways to do things. And we want to make sure that everyone's on the same page, no freelancing, things like that. So that's why you have the academy and to teach the proper techniques and the new techniques, because a lot of people do it the wrong way.
When I left the academy as a recruit, I went to Station 25 in Reston, which was the new at the time. That was the newest station. Engine and ladder truck. And that was the only ladder truck west of Fairfax City in the county. So you didn't want to put that out of service.
Have them do PT and run incident simulations, and they'll be working out or doing some studying and get a call, and they'll go respond on a call. So we try to give them a little taste of what it's like in the field, but it's really hard to get that actual taste at the academy. So we try to get them a little above and beyond the certifications, but we are here to certify them as firefighters.
The recruits are simply another group of firefighters that are just in service training. This is just their first in service training. There were times where we had to actually call recruit schools out to deal with certain incidents out there in the field.
It had evolved over my career from the 4 classrooms total to where that it had additional classrooms. They've also added the high bay building during my career. That's the big garage where that you can park multiple apparatus. They put 3 floors inside of that to train and repel out the windows and be inside in a controlled, more controlled atmosphere.
In 1976, the department implemented the first EMS plan for advanced life support, or medic units. The plan called for 10 medic units to be located throughout the county.
As in fireside, where you learn the structure of a building and how it's put together and the components. The medical side, you learn the anatomy, physiology of a human, and then you learn when those systems break down, what needs to be done to get them to an advanced care facility for treatment, further treatment. But it's mainly a stabilization thing in emergency medicine, pre-hospital care, to stabilize them and be able to transport them to a higher care facility.
The EMT training is part of the recruit training. There's a module, and it consists of about 6 weeks of training where they learn the basics from how to do CPR, opening an airway, basic life support, to developing skills in order to splint people, how to immobilize the spine so there's not further injury to people. They get a very broad spectrum, but it's confined just to emergency medical services.
You realize that you have more requirements as you go along. You know, the EMT schools that we went to were, a certain length of part of your training, and those have extended some. You found out that we needed to do more hazmat training, more driver training, the fire attack, ladder operations. All that stuff has gotten better as time has gone on, so the classes have expanded or had to lengthen so you could cover all those topics and get everybody up to speed on them.
The era of the 49th Recruit School ushered our first female firefighter, Chris Donovan, into the ranks of the department. This mirrored a shift in employment seen throughout our country as women staffed positions previously seen as male-dominated jobs.
Back in the 80s when I came in, we did not have paramedics on the engine companies. Now we have paramedics on the engine companies, and we're actually looking at putting some paramedics on our rescue squads. There's probably not one single gentleman in this organization that has not worked with a woman or had a shift leader as a woman. So things have changed dramatically in 27 years.
In the early 1980s, Chief Warren Isman brought with him a wealth of knowledge, including his experiences with fire and rescue service in urban environments, much like Fairfax County was becoming.
He understood the concept of a professional workplace and a place that was equal to all, and he made the organization change.
Our technical rescue operations team was established to address the complexity of rescues in our more urban county. Subsequently, the National Urban Search and Rescue Response System was established by FEMA, and Fairfax became a key resource to this expansive effort.
There's multiple disciplines in a USAR team, each having its own specialty. You have technical rescue people, you have heavy rescue people, you have fire suppression people, you have EMS people, you have search and rescue dogs. I was with communications, you have logistics specialists, and you also have medical specialists that come from the medical profession, doctors and nurses. It really depends upon what the need is at the site. Hurricanes have different needs than, say, a building collapse. And the team is customized to respond to the particular needs of that incident. But it's a multifaceted, multidisciplined team.
The disciplines I talked about, high angle rescue, which would be the rope rescue, cliff rescue, that type thing. It might be a window washer on the side of a high rise. It's rope stuff. And then there's trench rescue for cave-ins of earthen nature. There's structural collapse for concrete, steel, wood kind of structures that would collapse. There's the confined space, which is the well or a, you can say sewer pipe or wastewater piping or anything like that that has restricted entrance and egress. And then of course there's vehicle disentanglement, which is taught to most all firefighters at a basic level, but in the tech rescue you are exposed to other tools and a bigger tool selection to accomplish those tasks. And you become aware of their capabilities and your capabilities with them, and you make the selection of what you think is going to be the best for the job.
If you look back and you look at the track of how things evolved since that time, it was that foundation, and it was that cornerstone that was developed that allowed Fairfax County Fire and Rescue to expand.
It was really the beginning of what we have expanded to today in an all-hazard arena.
When there was something innovative, there was no other place for research and development to occur other than the live test laboratory, which was the Academy. So it went to somebody in research and development. They looked at it, refined it. It somehow made its way to the Academy to where it was actually tested. And from there, it either was thumbs up or out the door. And a lot of things, progressive things, were thumbs up. But they were always in the forefront of trying innovative things to progress firefighting efforts and training and et cetera.
When I came on the job, Paramedics didn't exist. After I got on the job, Paramedics became a skill set that we needed, and we started to train firefighters to be paramedics. In the 1980s, you had to be a paramedic to use a defibrillator. So we had to train a whole bunch of firefighters to be able to be paramedics, so on a fire company we could have a defibrillator. And what we discovered is that having a paramedic on the engine, a paramedic firefighter on the engine, it increased our ability to take care of life-threatening emergencies, cardiac arrest, trouble breathing, allergic reactions, to a point where the first arriving company within the 4 to 6 to 10 minutes was able to do something significant for the patient.
You have to be able to think, and you can't panic. You have to get yourself into the frame of mind. That's why you're working. That's why you're a firefighter. You're there to resolve that 911 issue.
One thing about this job, it is a constant learning environment because things in the environment change always. From technology to chemicals being used, building components being used, building components being lighter, more flammable, so forth and so on. So this is just the beginning of their career.
Today it's a lot different. They have a lot more people in a class. They have an extended time frame that it takes to train them, and they do. They get every nut and bolt of the job is pounded into them in a specific time frame to put them out in the field where they can literally do the job day one.
Being here, this entire environment is all about learning. And if a person is fortunate enough to spend time here, they're going to learn.
Last year, a new annex was added to our academy. The modern construction adds more space to accommodate the staff required to train our personnel.
That was one of my biggest thrills, is to be able to say I had a hand in getting them started off right in the basics of firefighting, and they had the God-given ability and knowledge to improve on it.
Because of the building industry, the building in Fairfax County, and the high rises and the building boom, you know, of course the department had to move forward, so a lot of folks were hired starting at about that time. So that's the reason, you know, the department, you know, got pretty big, and it was pretty tough keeping up with training and apparatus and fire stations and all the things that go along with it.
This is truly an academy now, and they do lots of things here. We were primarily basic EMT and firefighter school. Now they do multiple forms of training. They actually train nurses here. It's a multi-purpose facility, has all kinds of resources that serve not just public safety. I mean, SWAT teams, K-9 teams, they train here as well. But even community training occurs here. It's just an awesome facility. I'm very impressed and very proud to have worked here twice.
Fairfax County couldn't have treated me any better, and I couldn't have had a better job or better retirement. And I appreciate the people I work for in Fairfax County, and just can't say enough good about it.
The Fairfax County Fire and Rescue Academy has continued to excel throughout the decades, developing an organization dedicated to creating the best community-focused, technically advanced fire and rescue service, ensuring a safe and secure county for all. That's it for this edition of Fire and Rescue Digest. If there are any topics you'd like to see covered, please contact the Public Affairs and Life Safety Education staff at 703-246-3801. Visit our website or find us on social media. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.